Oh yeah, I hear you. Great, man. How's everything going? You made quite some news over here in our parts here in the last couple of weeks, man. How's everything going? Are things going okay over there?
Yeah, I mean they could be a lot worse. Let me tell you that. I'm alive and well. I've got food on the plate. I got musical instruments at hand. Um, I've got Zoom capabilities, fellas. What else do I need?
Hey, I guess we could go a little further and ask for a little bit of football back, and I know that's all you guys want there as well. And just take us through that because you're now the coach of the Lazio Ducks there in Italy. Just talk about kind of how this came to be. Obviously, you were with the Bears until just a few months ago, and new
Correct.
opportunity arises in Italy, and you're out of the country now. You're in Italy. Talk about kind of how that happened.
Correct. Yeah. So I was hired as the special teams coordinator and the defensive backs coach, the secondary coach. And so how it came to fruition was after I was released by the Bears, I waited for a while to see if any other opportunities were gonna present themselves stateside. And after a while, you kind of get restless and you say, okay, I want to stay involved in the game. If I'm going to have to wait until the next hiring cycle for college and the NFL next year, I don't want to just sit idle for a year. So I said, well, I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone. I'm gonna go back to Italy, where my both my children live here, and so I'm going to coach, be close to my children, and my girlfriend is Roman, so her and her family are here in Rome, and so I said, you know what, I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone and do that, and then shortly after I arrived, after 2 weeks of practice, this um, pandemic breaks out, and here we go. So that's kind of how it all happened in a nutshell.
Well, definitely hoping we can get back to business as usual at some point. I know it's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of craziness right now, man, but we certainly appreciate it. We had you on, I think 5, 6 years ago. It was actually when you were still at Coastal Carolina, and we got into a lot of stuff about your career, man, because, growing up, that those Mizzou teams you were on were literally the foundation of sports for me, Brock, and like, thinking about you guys laying that foundation, and you came to Mizzou in 1994, and you did that coming off of a state championship at Washington. Just talk about kind of the recruiting process. Larry Smith's at Mizzou. You come in there with literally no bowl games in over 10 years for Missouri at that point. What did you come in there? What were your expectations? And then you certainly could say that you left the program a lot better than when you found it.
Yeah. So growing up, I was a Tiger fan, and as you mentioned, there was a drought, um, and so but that didn't dissuade me at all from being loyal to those guys. And you know, I I had even considered just walking on had I not received an offer there, regardless of offers maybe elsewhere. And so because I just want I there was to me, there's no greater pride than playing for your home state. That's the way I feel about it. So when Larry Smith got hired, it just the timing was perfect. It couldn't have been more perfect. He gets hired. I believe I was one of the first um, uh, committals that year. There may have been some other guys maybe up in the northern part of the state who committed before I did, but I know I was one of the first. And he, he was making his rounds, his recruiting visits around the state, and he came to my house with Curtis Jones, the late Curtis Jones, senior, who was at the time the running backs coach. And so Coach Jones ended up being my position coach for my first 3 years at Missouri, and is a man who I love and adore and always will. And so they were in my living room with my parents and me and my younger sister Daisy, and I was about to jump off the couch and hug both of them and say, hey, let's go. I think I would have left with them that very evening. I would have left my house and said, bye, mom and dad, I'm out. Anyway, so that's how it happened there. for me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, Larry Smith was very well known. We were so fortunate to have him as a coach. Joe Castiglione definitely did his homework, and that was a big get for us. And what Larry inherited, as you guys know, was it was the doormat of the Big Eight at the time, and one of the most dormant programs in Division I football in the entire country. Grossly underfunded, grossly just neglected in a lot of areas, as you well know. And Larry and Joe Castiglione together reignited the fire, and had some good recruiting classes there in the beginning, and they got it rolling. So and Corby Jones and company, and Devin West and superstar guys like that came in and just turned the thing around. And it was just really satisfying to fly back on that flight from Colorado in 1997 when we beat those guys out there to solidify a winning season for the first time in, 13 years. It was,
Yeah.
I'll never forget that flight back, man. And the fans waiting at the airport. That to me was that was sort of the, that was the culmination of all that blood, sweat, and tears, and all that frustration that had built up. And that was kind of the pinnacle for us, my class anyway. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I mean, I remember going, my first game that I ever attended was in 95. You guys lost to Bowling Green. And I remember my dad saying, Clint, this Larry Smith guy is going to get this turned around. It's going to get better. Loved Brock Olivo, loved what guys like you, Ron James, you mentioned, Devin, Corby Jones were bringing to the program. And then you get to 97 and things, like you mentioned, you come back from that Colorado game and you win that game. And then that leads us to, the Nebraska game, of course, which they just replayed on ESPNU. I don't know if you get ESPNU over there in Italy, but
all my teammates were writing and were sending me, hey, dude, it's the second quarter. You just scored a touchdown. Blah 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 blah. I wonder how it's going to turn out. Ha 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 ha.
Well, you know what? The truth of it is, I hadn't watched the game in its entirety since I was a 14-year-old kid in 97, but I've never been more proud of a team, Brock. I've never been more. It's one of the great college football games of all time. If you don't have rooting interest in it, which we all did, but
True.
Take us through that. That Nebraska team winds up winning a national title. Guys like Mike Rucker, Grant Wistrom, Eric Warfield, Amon Green, Scott Frost, who's now the coach at Nebraska. Let's take us through kind of the mindset of that team going into that game and kind of the feeling going after, because you guys wind up ranked after losing that game. So
correct. And so there are a couple of good little anecdotes surrounding that game and the week leading up to it. So we had just, I believe, who did we beat the week before? Was it maybe Tulsa or Texas? I can't remember who we had beat before. I know we had Baylor the week after that at home.
Yeah, Baylor after, I think it was Texas before, because they had, with Ricky Williams, you guys ran all over them. That was Ernest Blackwell's big game.
Yeah. I think the Nebraska game was like the penultimate game of the regular season that year. So we had one game left, but leading up to the Nebraska game, it was funny, fellas, because in the previous 3 years, I was at Mizzou. When Nebraska week came, we dug our heels in and we got to work, and we tried to pull together and to go in there with the attitude that, hey, we're going to upset these guys. I mean, we can do it. We can pull it off. But then, after the first quarter, it was always kind of there was always kind of this deflation, this demoralization, and you're like, man, here they go, because it was hard to stop. It was hard to get rolling on offense. It was just hard to get clicking against those guys in that era, because they were clicking on all cylinders. They had it rolling, and they were a juggernaut. They really were. And so that year, though, 97. At the beginning of that week, when we started watching film on those guys and breaking them down, the feeling I had was completely different from prior years, because that year we were kind of walking with a little more swag. in our step. We had our chest pumped out a little bit further, and we were holding our heads up a little bit higher. Larry Smith had finally made believers out of us. And I'll tell you, fellas, it is so incredible, the difference, because physically, to a man, we were basically the same team we were the year before in 96.
Yeah.
Physically, man to man, right? The difference was the attitude. The attitude when we took the field in 97 was, okay, it's do or die. I'm talking about my class, the senior class. This was our last go around. So it was do or die for us. And we would not accept leaving Mizzou, okay, not having turned that thing around. And so when we took the field, every week we had a swag about us. That week against Nebraska, we started watching film, and we were, and I'll forget, I was in with Ron James. We were in the running backs room. We were breaking down their blitz package, their linebackers and whatnot. We were saying, hey, man, dude, we can block these guys, man. These guys, they're human beings, man. We can block these guys. We can run on them. We can throw on them. And we had a confidence about us all week. In practice, we got after it. We were no nonsense. And I'll tell you, we didn't even think about it when we took the field that night. We didn't see that red N on their helmet. We didn't see that thing anymore. It was just another team in front of us. That's how we approached it.
Wow.
Okay. And so, and there's a great little anecdote before the game. I don't know if you guys know, there's a guy, he's a longtime Mizzou supporter named Fred DeMarco. Was the owner, maybe still is the owner of the Deja Vu nightclub, the comedy club, actually, in Columbia. Okay. Longtime Mizzou football supporter, Fred DeMarco, always on the sideline. Just a great character within Mizzou football. Well, I'll never forget, before the game, he comes up to me. We're on the sideline before the game, and this is like even before warm-ups. This is way before the game. And he said, hey, Brock. He said, Brocco. He said, do you feel kind of that buzz in the air? He said. And I said, yeah, Freddie, I feel it. There's something different about tonight. He said, yes, there is. He said, I've been standing on this sideline for 30 plus years, whatever it was. And he said, there's something different about tonight. He said, you mark my words, something special is going to happen tonight. And I said, I dig what you're saying, Freddie D. I dig what you're saying. And I actually told that anecdote in a foreword in a book that Dave Matter wrote a couple years ago about Missouri sports, and that because that stuck with me, because Freddie DeMarco called it that night, and he called it, and so I'll never forget that. And sure enough, we took the field, and we came out of that tunnel with a sort of a calmness that we hadn't had before, because we were so confident, and we lined them up and we knocked them down, and we traded punches all night. At the end of the night, they ended up getting the best of us in overtime. That's true. But man, we stood toe to toe, and we proved to ourselves that that Mizzou football was actually back. It really was. It wasn't just a fluke run, a winning streak. It was really, really back, because were it not for that freak play, I think a lot of our lives would be different right now, and because of that, because Mizzou would have gone on, and we would have been ranked probably in the top 10 after that. Would have gone into a different bowl game scenario, and who knows? You just never know what can happen. So, as I reflect on that evening, it ended up changing our lives anyway, because we're talking about it 20 years later, and it really was an important piece of college football, in that decade, and especially during our tenure there. I mean, that kind of defined us in the end, and so that was good. That was good.
It's yeah, absolutely. One of the great college football games, I think, definitely of that era, and it stands out to me as one of the great / horrifying moments of my childhood, and I'm still trying to work through that. And you know, this is a little bit of therapy, Brock. Thanks for being a part of it. No,
No,
you
no problem, brother.
had a tremendous game and a tremendous career. I mean, you wind up having your jersey retired in 2003. I was actually at that game. It was against Middle Tennessee, and I remember Missouri wins that game in overtime. And you have your jersey retired. I'm sure for you, someone that is so invested and such a team player, that meant probably more and said more about the recruiting class that you had, the guys that you played with, and more than taking
Right.
it as a personal honor, I'm sure you probably take that more as a testament to what you guys were able to accomplish.
No question. My name represents uh, everybody who took the field with me during those 4 years, and that's the only way that I would ever present that. And that Mizzou put on a very nice little ceremony for my family and myself and all the teammates I wanted to invite. They allowed me to invite them, including Coach Smith and Joe Castiglione. They all came back for it, and it was a very special event that the Alden and everybody put on for us. And that was the first and the last thing I said at that was that this it could have been anybody's name up there, but I'm honored it's mine. But it represents everybody who donned that helmet when I was there. So, yeah.
Well, Brock, I wanted to ask you about three guys from your time in Detroit. You arrive in 1998. You play with maybe the greatest running back in NFL history in Barry Sanders. Then I wanted to talk to you about Charlie Batch, who I believe was vastly underrated, put his body on the line, left it all out there on the field. And the last one is Jermaine Crowell, who I just don't think it's talked about enough and who really could have been the next up-and-comer at receiver if not for all the injuries.
Yeah, what an amazing talent Jermaine Crowell was. Well, I'll start with Barry. Obviously, Barry. So my rookie year was his last year, and as you guys remember, he retired out of the blue, took everybody by surprise. However, outside of the franchise, if you were in the franchise, if you knew Barry, it really didn't shock you because he was kind of a different character. And I mean, there's some awesome anecdotes about Barry Sanders. I won't share them all right now, but my gosh, what a unique individual as a person and a player, and all in a positive light. But to see him go to work on a daily basis was fascinating for me. I was a rookie, and I idolized him growing up, and to actually see him in person every day go to work like that was awesome. It was surreal in a word. And then he did his thing on game day. I mean, he was as good in year 10 as he was in his rookie season. He was as electrifying and could have played for another 5 years, probably, realistically, because his body didn't take the beating that a lot of running backs do because of his elusiveness. So I was fortunate to be in the running back room with him and to get to know him just a little bit, that year. And what a treat. So one of the most humble people I've ever been around, given his stardom.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. Then Charlie Batch. So I don't know if you guys remember, but Charlie Batch in 1997.
He's from Michigan. Yeah, you played against him. Yeah.
That's right. Came to Columbia, and we knew. Our coaching staff zeroed in on him from day one. It was like, okay, this guy's coming in. This quarterback. Do not take Eastern Michigan lightly, fellas. This quarterback is the real deal. He's legit. He's going to be playing on Sundays. They called it. Sure enough, he did. And so Charlie Batch came into a situation, that was difficult. You had Scott Mitchell in there, the veteran, who had some, he put together some pretty good seasons under Bobby Ross. And you had Barry in the backfield. You had a very good wide receiver core: Herman Moore, Johnny Morton, and then Jermaine Crowell, who we drafted as well that year. And so you kind of saw the writing on the wall that they wanted to make Charlie the guy. And they were grooming him to become the guy. Well, he got thrown in there earlier than everyone expected, and stood in there and showed a lot of gumption, a lot of courage, a lot of savviness his rookie year, and had a pretty decent year for a rookie. And then just, the deal in Detroit year in and year out, fellas, is always the same thing. It would just there were just some key missing pieces to pull it all together, and there was always sort of these expectations of, well, when are they gonna screw it up, that kind of thing. It was kind of
Yeah.
And it was so frustrating because we had the pieces in Detroit.
Absolutely.
Since then, in the past 15 to 18 years, has had a lot of really good teams that they've fielded, but at one point or another, there's been something catastrophic that happens injury-wise, that deflates the momentum. And so, unfortunately, it's like that. Someday it'll happen, and they'll get back to the championship and they'll win it. But Charlie Batch had a good run, and he was a guy who, as he demonstrated later in his career, he had longevity, he had value. He could be a starter in the league, and I think Matt Millen and Marty Mornhinweg used him wisely, when they inherited him as well. And then they ended up, drafting Joey Harrington, et cetera, et cetera. But I was a big fan of Charlie Batch. Loved him as a person too. He was a humble guy, and so nothing but good things to say about Charlie. And then Jermaine Crowell. I mean, what a talent. What a talent. Unfortunately, not a lot of people even know his name.
Yeah, exactly.
And right. And so he's just one of many stories like that, who, guys who unfortunately their careers get stopped short because of an injury. I'll never forget when he injured his patellar tendon. He tore his patellar tendon on that tough AstroTurf, that hard surface that we played in at the Silverdome. Came down on it violently, and it gave out, which happened a lot on that surface, and it ended a lot of people's careers, unfortunately. But yes, that is one name, fellas, who unfortunately was cut short because of unfortunate circumstances. He's now, the last time I spoke with Jermaine was a couple years ago. We emailed each other. I believe Jermaine is a pastor.
Yeah.
In the state of Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, fellas,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly. So, but seemed like he was doing well, and has children, and so it turned out okay for him.
Yeah, it did. And you mentioned the Lions sometimes being close, but a devastating injury happened. So I got to ask you about your time there. In 2000, you guys missed out on the playoffs due to Charlie Batch getting injured in that last game against the Bears. Stoney Case comes in. Paul Edinger makes a 54-yard field goal as time expires. Then in 2001, Marty Mornhinweg and Matt Millen come in. And all the former teammates of yours we've talked to, whether it's Charlie Batch, Herman Moore, Chris Claiborne, Cedric Irvin, they wanted Gary Moeller to stay on, who took over mid-year for Bobby Ross. They wanted him to stay on, remain as coach in 2001. Do you share that sentiment with them?
I do. I can, and here's the thing, like, it's always easy to talk, hindsight, but before Marty and Matt were ever even in the picture, we wanted players united. We wanted Mo to stay on as the head coach, because when he came in and filled in for Coach Ross, we went on a little bit of a run. And I believe the first game Mo took over as the head coach, he went out to New York and beat the Giants. Maybe I can't remember who it was.
That's right.
Is that right? Yeah,
yep.
Right. Okay. So, and then we gained a little bit of momentum, and we felt like, we had something going, and everyone loved Mo, man. He was the great galvanizer. And so, and they had this old school sort of approach about him that you could get on board with. He fit the NFC North in that era. He was the type of coach that just fit there. And Detroit, the blue collar, roll your sleeves up, go to work attitude. Gary Moeller was the epitome of that, I thought. And so we loved Mo. Unfortunately, things just, they didn't go that way. Upper management went a different direction, and the rest is history. But yes, I can tell you that unanimously, as a locker room, we wanted Gary Moeller.
Well, Brock, your coaching career certainly started taking off. You got into coaching, and you started over there in Italy again, and you move on to the Omaha Nighthawks. I think last time we interviewed you, you were with Coastal Carolina. And then the next thing we know, you're here on the sidelines here in Kansas City with Dave Toub and our Kansas City Chiefs, who just win Super Bowl 54. It's been a great time here in Kansas City. Just kind of take us through your time here in the NFL, obviously working with a guy like Dave Toub, one of the great special teams coordinators in the game. And then you move on to Denver, where Drew Lock is now. And then finally with the Bears, man. So just kind of take us through what the last several years have been like for you in the NFL.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about Dave Toub and the effect, that he's had on not only myself, but every player who Dave Toub has come in contact with. Every life he has touched has been blessed during that period, because Dave Toub is, as you guys know, he's a special individual. He was the strength and conditioning coach at Missouri when I was there. So he became a father figure to me in that era, and then goes on to put together an illustrious career as a special teams coordinator. And here's the thing about Dave Toub that needs to be put out there in public, that not a lot of people talk about. In fact, nobody ever talks about this, and it's really frustrating, because his name comes up in the head coach circle a lot, right? They talk about his name as a candidate in the head coaching circle, right? And he's had interviews, and people are, he's a great special teams coach, but he's just a special teams coach. Well, what people don't realize is Dave Toub to me and to everybody he's played for is he's the archetype. I always use the word archetype when I talk about Toub, because he really is. He is exactly what you're looking for in a head coaching candidate. He coaches the entire team. Nobody understands the roster like he does, top to bottom. Nobody can motivate like he does. And his demeanor, his presence, everything about him, is exactly how you would design if you were going to design a head coach. And here's another thing. People in the special teams world, they talk about Dave Toub and they say, well, Dave Toub has all the best athletes always. He always has the best talent. Well, guess what? They completely undervalue Dave Toub's ability to evaluate. He gets those good players because he evaluates them. He has a system that is, it's produced the likes of Devin Hester and all of the Pro Bowl. The list is long. All the Pro Bowl special teams players who Dave Toub has produced over his long career, going on, almost 20 years now, probably 20 plus, is due to his ability to evaluate. The head coaches who he coaches for put a lot of stock, and the GMs put a lot of stock into Dave's evaluation system, and they lean on him big time on draft day. I saw it. I lived it. And so it's by no coincidence that Dave Toub has the best players in the NFL, because he evaluates them and he brings them in. And so that's something that nobody ever talks about, because they're not there and they don't see it. And it's easy for other special teams coaches in the league to say, well, he gets the best players. No, it's because he brings them in. So I wanted to say that was important to me to get that out there. But it's a shame that nobody's given him a chance. They gave Joe Judge a chance in New York, and I thought that was a testament, to the fact that, hey, maybe GMs and owners are starting to sort of open up and see the light, regarding special teams coaches' ability to manage the franchise, because they have the skill set that you want. They're not just one-sided. They understand the roster on game day. Most of the new coaches who come in who've only coached on one side of the ball have no idea what they're dealing with when it comes down to the game day roster. There are only 45 guys active, so you have to put 7 guys down. And how do you make those decisions? Well, those decisions a lot of times, if they're not based on injury, they're based on special teams needs, And so that's where the special teams coach's knowledge of the roster from top to bottom comes in big time. But so there's my diatribe on Dave Toub. As you could tell, I'm a very big fan and supporter. My coaching career, guys, I've been fortunate. Toub brought me into the league because he believed in me and my work ethic and my passion for football, and especially for special teams, played a large role in that. I've been just very fortunate to have opportunities to go to Denver. I did not perform well in Denver, and then I got a chance in Chicago with Matt Nagy, who I have a ton of respect for, and I got to coach under Chris Tabor, who, in my opinion, is one of the best. He's probably this, behind Toub, he's the second best special teams coach in the NFL, no question. Tabes is, and a great person to boot, nonetheless. And I just have a ton of respect for Chris Tabor, and he's going to have a long career, and I hope he wins a Super Bowl too someday, because he deserves it. But I've just been my stories. I've been very fortunate, and I've been fortunate to work under some of the best in the game, and that's all I can say. So, and I've been fortunate to coach some really good players as well. So.
Well, Brock, when you were on that Chiefs coaching staff, you saw what they were building there. So if you could just talk to us about Andy Reid as a coach, kind of what you've seen out of Patrick Mahomes from afar, and just the feelings you had watching the Chiefs put it all together and win their first Super Bowl in 50 years.
Yeah. So coaching under Coach Reid, it was only a question of time before he won a Super Bowl, because seeing how he does it day in and day out, Andy Reid he's the most consistent human being I've ever been around, and that transcends all walks of life, from football to life to I mean, I'm pretty sure his feet retrace the same steps every day. Whatever he does, he steps in the same spot every day, because that's how he approaches the game, and that's why he's so good, because he has a relentless drive to keep chipping away at what he believes is right, and it proved in Philadelphia. It got him to 3 NFC Championship games. It got him to the Super Bowl. In Kansas City, he's never had a losing season. What he does and what he believes in is right. And football, as you guys know, in the NFL, 99% of the time, it comes down to how fortunate are you in injuries, and how fortunate are you in maybe one superstar player here, one more here, one less there. It's such a finite difference between winning the Super Bowl and not. And so Andy Reid's philosophy and his drive and his determination and his steadfastness, and to me that did not shock me at all. And I believe he's going to win more now that he has the pieces in place that complement his awesome leadership. And so it's just fun to watch, and I'm just happy that his legend, even though he was, to me, he was a no-brainer, drop in the hat Hall of Fame coach before the Super Bowl victory. But now, okay, all the naysayers can just, they can put that stuff to bed, and he can he can relish in the credit that he deserves. Yeah.
Well, Brock, one last thing here, and we'll let you go. We can't thank you enough for being on with us today, and it's just a true honor always. And again, on a personal note, thanks so much for being a part of a Missouri team that helped me become the fan that I am today, and now led both of us, both Noah and I, into sports media. We cover Mizzou on a daily basis now. So with that being said, Missouri's now had 3 head coaches since you played there. Of course, Gary Pinkel, Barry Odom, and now Eli Drinkwitz. Talk to us about the knowledge that you have, maybe about the current state of the program. And I don't know how close you've been able to follow it, but kind of the prospects going forward. Missouri's kind of had to go through some transitions here. And but hopefully the arrow's pointing up on Coach Drinkwitz. He's like 6 years younger than you. He's like my age. So I don't know how I've met him. Seems like a great guy. But what is your thoughts on Mizzou football going forward?
Well, my heart is always with the program, and I just want what's best for Mizzou football. Obviously, when Barry was there, I had a vested interest because that's one of my former teammates, and that's a former Tiger at the helm. And so I paid a lot more attention. I'm going to be honest, to the program when he was there, and was pulling for Barry, obviously. But such is college football. I mean, that's how it rolls. There's just it can be a cutthroat business, as you guys know, and it keeps rolling. The train keeps rolling. And so I from the little I know and the little that I can gather from Coach Drinkwitz, he's an awesome coach, and he's got the program excited. He's got the fans and the alum excited. And the players speak well about him, and my gosh, he's got a great track record. He's an extremely articulate and well-spoken, really good communicator in my humble opinion. And so, to me, it looks like a great choice. And so, guys, again, it's a lot like the NFL in that. You have to have a little bit of good fortune along the way too. You got to hit some good recruits, recruiting classes in there, and you have to be fortunate with the injury bug and whatnot. So obviously, myself and my fellow alumni are pulling for the program, and we're right on board with Coach Drinkwitz and MIZ, man. That's
absolutely, Brock. ZOU forever, man. Thank you so much for doing this with us. Best of luck there with the Lazio Ducks. We just hope at some point we can be talking about some on-field strategies and what that's going to look like. So, and of course, at some point, selfishly, we hope we get you back stateside here at some point soon too, my friend.
As do I, my friend. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Clint, take care, man. Noah, take care. It was a pleasure to speak with you, fellas, and be safe over there, huh?
You guys
absolutely
too.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Be safe, stay healthy, and all the best, my friend.
Will do. Take care, guys. Talk to you soon.